Welcome to the Soul Grit Podcast. I'm Ann Taylor McNeese, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I also love Jesus, and I'm passionate about all things gospel and therapy. I created Soul Grit to be at the intersection of mental health and Christian faith. Christ followers need a place to ask questions and get answers about mental health. Join me as we dive into real stories and real questions from people who want to honor God with their hearts, souls, and minds. Welcome back to the Soul Grit Podcast. This is Anne, and today I have part 2 of a conversation with Michelle Nietert. If you haven't listened to part 1, you might want to pause this and go back so that things that we're saying are going to make a little more sense here. It was originally intended as a 1-part episode, but we just got going and I had to cut it into 2 to make sure you could listen all the way through. So go ahead and listen to last week's episode and then come back and hear the rest of the conversation here.
I know a lot of people may look at a book on Make Up Your Mind, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I have some competitors out there that are far more well-known than me, have written great books recently on mindset. Now, I had no idea they were coming when I was working on it, but here's why it's okay to do that. Because one of the greatest things, I worked for Louis Giglio in college. And one time I was at a conference with a guy named Dave Busby, who was another leader at the time. And Dave was the oldest man living with, I think it was like cystic fibrosis or something.
Okay.
And when I was at dinner with them, I said to Dave, I'm like, your message blew me away. I've never heard anything like that before. And he called me a liar. It's kind of an unusual experience to have to meet somebody and you give them a compliment and they call you a liar. And he said, you work for this guy. And I said, yeah. And he said, you listen to him all the time, even before you work, him. And I was like a volunteer, in the church, but I'd also gone overseas with his ministry to England. And he said, and you probably grew up in a home, your parents, my dad has a theology degree, kind of thing, leader in the church. And he said, young lady, he said, you're not going to learn a lot of new stuff, but to remember and live what you know will be a daily choice. And I still kind of almost get emotional as I talk about it because it's the real battle we all face. It's why my clients come back. Sometimes my clients will graduate and they'll feel bad. Like they'll feel bad because they're making another appointment. And sometimes I think, should we call it graduation? I like that name because it's kind of a celebration, but it doesn't mean you can't come back because you get, I told him one time one came back and I said, some people get masters and doctorates, it's a good idea sometime to come back. But a lot of times when they come back, I say to them where we left off is these were the goals and these were the things you were doing on a daily, weekly basis. How's that going? And one of them was so funny. She's kind of my overachiever. She goes, you know what? She's like, we can talk today, but I'm going to go work on doing those things again because they didn't really work for me. And I totally forgot about all of them by now. And then I think I'm going to be a lot better really fast. I probably won't need you very long. I just need you to hold me accountable to putting those things back in place. I know what to do.
Refresher.
Yeah. I know what to do. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of us need.
I had a client this week tell me, she gets so stressed out. And then she said, when I see your face, I know what I'm supposed to do. So I keep making appointments to see your face.
Well, and here's the other thing that does. It's funny. Well, I'll tell you a funny story like that. So one of my clients was actually thinking about doing something really dumb. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I'll tell you what he's going to do because a long time ago, you would never figure it out. He was going to buy something off the street because he was struggling and he couldn't get his prescription refilled easily. And it's controlled substance. So he's thinking about doing that. And he literally thought he heard my voice. So I was like, is he hallucinating? And he was thinking the same thing. Like he heard my voice and it stopped him. And he thought, I'm not going to do this. She's given me coping skills. I'm not using them. And I'm going to start using them right now. Well, he walked in the other room. And so I used to be the crisis counselor for a school district. And they still air some of my interviews on the city channel. So I was literally on the city channel. He really did hear my voice. So it is funny. And that's to me, I just wrote an article for ministry leaders and I'm speaking at a ministry conference. To me, counseling, coaching, mentoring, whatever you're doing, you're creating a space and time in your life to be accountable to someone else, no different than like a personal trainer or your doctor, to creating a change or to evaluating where you are and thinking about what you want to do. Because a lot of us go into robot mode. And that's why I wrote Make Up Your Mind, because we get into this robot mode and then we cycle into a bad place and then we don't understand how we got there. And it really is, we just dropped a lot. So if you're listening to this today and you think, I know what to do, what's wrong with me? You're Paul. Paul says, I know what to do and I don't do it. Yeah. You know, he's the first guy who I think coined the term in Greek, the struggle is real. So he got it. He wrote letters to his people because he knew he wasn't going to be there to remind him about it.
Yeah.
We need reminders too. Yeah. We read the letters that he wrote years ago to remind us. But then sometimes we have to think about, how do I infuse that into my life from a practical standpoint? And who do I answer to make sure I don't binge Netflix instead of do that? You know? Although that's a great distraction skill in DBT. I laugh. There's this fine line, right? Between binging Netflix to kind of shut your brain down or it becoming almost addictive behavior as an escape from the life that you don't want to face.
And sometimes I'll even have my clients like, send me a selfie of you doing the thing that you said you were going to do this week, you know, like just have some accountability in that. Or I've had
I'm so glad you said that, because I have a client who owes me an email because he was supposed to report to me on something yesterday and he did not do it. So I do need, and clients can't write me long emails, obviously, but I shaved a little time off this session. And I said to him, I want to take this time and I want you to send me an email twice this week. We gave him the dates because I want to see if it's happening. And if it's not, I'm going to give you a little prod. So I owe him a prod. It's hard to do that as a counselor, because when you get a caseload, like a lot of my staff have, like, if you don't see everybody weekly, then you're going to have a caseload of maybe 40, 60 clients that you see in a month. So it's hard to do that. But for some people, we do that for a short period of time to just,
and it's not everybody on your caseload that needs that kind of thing. So you just have to, know who needs it. And I always tell my clients, like, I'm not going to remember what homework I assigned you.
Unless I look at my notes, right? Because I'm now talking to somebody else. Yes, exactly.
So I'll tell them, you know what, if you do your homework, we don't always have homework, but if I give you something to work on in between and you don't do it, that's on you. I mean, you're the one that's paying to come here. And if you do your stuff, you can come back and we can share about it and we can make progress. If you don't, you're not in trouble. I'm not going to get on your case.
Some people only have the bandwidth to give the 1 hour to it.
Right.
So that's all they can do. But yes, we have a sign actually in our waiting room that says the other 6 days, 23 hours, because they make such a difference in the process of change. If you want to move fast, then you have to dedicate a little more time to the work we're doing it's just like if you go see a personal trainer once a week and you only work out with them once a week, you're not going to get much muscles.
Yeah.
That's good Texas phrase, isn't it? You're not going to get much muscles. But if you see that trainer and she sets up a program for you and you do that on a regular basis, just like I'm doing with my physical therapist,
right?
I'm trying. And this is where you have to evaluate yourself. If I don't do the exercises I told her, I will make more appointments to see you. Right now, I'm planning on seeing her once a week. But I told her the first time I go 3 or 4 days, or if I go from 1 week to the next week and I have not done any exercises, then I will be increasing my frequency because that's what I tell clients. So, a lot of them are like, I don't know how often I need to meet with you. Well, I like to meet with everybody like 3 times in a row. I don't know if you do that. So I kind of get to know them a little bit and we feel like we're moving. But then I'm okay with them changing their pace, but then they have to understand that could affect their progress in that process too, as well. And I'm really respectful of that. And some people need more accountability than others. And some people have more bandwidth. Like my bandwidth right now is shrinking a lot. So because this book's coming out and I'm speaking I think I speak 20 times in the next 4 months or something.
No, I've been watching your social media. You're crazy.
I know it's very busy. So when that happens, I just reached out to my coach and I coach coaches. I teach them how to build real practices with real clients. I think a lot of people get a certification, and that's why I tell them, if you can get a certification in a weekend, you're probably not going to have enough to offer services as a coach.
Yeah.
Because you and I have spent you
years.
You need to invest in a training and a process that's going to make you competent, that somebody's going to pick you over somebody else who's also out there offering those services. And it's going to have a little bit to do with what you know how to master.
Yeah.
And not only if you can do it, but can you help others do it?
Yeah. Yes, Michelle, you're a busy lady. So,
well, that is true, but I'm a busy lady who, we talk about this in the book, who has to rest, because nobody's brain and body, as we talk about the physical element of mindset, you cannot hold on to good, healthy mindsets if you are not giving yourself sleep.
Yes.
And you are not giving yourself rest. So there's a physical, I talk about this all the time. There's a physical component to mindset. If you're struggling with your mindset and you're not getting enough sleep, or you might want to work on your sleep, your mindset might get better. If you're struggling with your mindset and you're living in a very toxic relationship, you're going to need to surround yourself with a lot of positive relationships, because they need to undo the messages of that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you have a question for me about soul care that's going to kind of relate to
it's going to come up.
Yeah.
Just the first 2 episodes in 2022 that I did was about these 5 resets. And I have a client that made like a compass rose, like north, south, east, west, but she put on there nutrition, exercise, sleep, social supports, and spirituality.
Yeah.
And she keeps that right in front of her desk. And if you don't have like this kind of foundational level of health, just health in general, like you're not going to be able to transform your mind in that way.
Well, because mental health is integrated with all the different aspects of health, physical health, relational health, spiritual health, all these different types of emotional health, which a lot of times has to do with our body chemistry. They all interact together. And so I think you and I both have it sounds like a very holistic approach to counseling. And it was funny because Deborah and I were talking about that. Her book is divided into those aspects of the wheel. That's kind of all of our counseling filters, because we know you can get better by working on your mind, but we also know you can get better by walking every day, because we know walking, depends on the study, 20 to 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week is as effective as that low dose of Celexa that I took. But I was walking, and I still wasn't getting enough from it, because I had always been walking, and I couldn't walk any more than I didn't think I could boost the serotonin that way anymore than I was. Correct. You know, because here's the thing that's hard. When you are struggling with depression and anxiety, you don't have the same amount of energy to do the things you know to do. And that's when it gets hard. And that's where sometimes I think the other thing you and I provide, the one book I make all our counselors read, it's the first book they have to read, is called Solution Focused Pastoral Counseling.
Oh, okay.
And he talks about, I teach it in the class. I teach marriage and family therapy occasionally as an adjunct, and I make the ministers read it. I always laugh. Y'all need to have some basic skills, you know, more than one of my friends, her husband is the pastor of one of the largest churches in the Dallas area. And he's like, I'm so glad y'all exist, because she was a social worker. He said, because when people come in and tell me their problems, I think that is really bad, or that's not so bad. Suck it up and get over it. Or I don't know what to tell you. And none of those are good counsel, right? So, other than love Jesus and trust him, and here's what his word says. That's all he can do, because he's a pastor and that is what he's equipped to do. But he doesn't have time to sit and unpack and listen and pray. And he's not wired to be compassionate towards that anyway. So that is where we come in sometimes, as I really wanted to disciple people in the church. And I realized there's no paid staff position. And if there is pastoral care, it's the first position they cut. But going back to solution focused pastoral counseling, one of the chapters talks about the importance of hope. And I think what we offer a lot of times for our clients is, you know how you talked about that person who wakes up and they can't find their hope? Then we bring the hope of God into the room for them to find some hope until they can produce it themselves. And I think that's such an important calling in the role of Christian counseling.
I think it might even say that on my website, that I will hold your hope until you can pick it back up again.
That's so beautiful. I love the way you say that. That's really pretty.
Actually,
I
Michelle,
love meeting like-minded people. It's
I feel like so many things you have said, I'm like, I do that. Or that's just like me.
We can work together. We can totally work together.
Okay. So I feel like we're going to probably talk a little bit more about your book and the different kinds of mindsets, but we've kind of like ran out of time talking about all these other cool things.
What? I think that's totally good. What we'll do is like, get the book, check it out, check out the victim mindset and the scarcity mindset and the depressive mindset and the angry mindset. We've got just a huge variety of mindsets. And I think that's too much to cover really anyway. We didn't even write the book for somebody to just sit down and read. We really wrote the book for you to get. And if you're struggling with this type of mindset, you can read from a biblical teaching, that deep preacher theology perspective from Denise, and then follow it with, how do I do this in my life every day for me? kind of getting 2 books in one. It's like a little bonus package. And then you can work on those things. And I do think it's going to take that. And maybe you're going to need to find some people to help you with that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the book is called Make Up Your Mind.
Yes.
And it's going to be available when?
Mid-April. You can
Mid-April.
pre-order it now. Here's the cool thing.
Perfect.
I don't know when you're going to put this out, but it is already available for pre-order on Amazon, and we would love for you to pre-order it. And it's really pretty. It kind of, I'm a Baylor girl and grew up in Waco, so it's got a magnolia look to it.
Okay.
You know, who knows? Maybe they'll carry it. And probably one of my dreams would be that it's got a door with like a key on it. Totally like could be in their store.
Yeah.
But guys, it's got good stuff in it. It might look a little like, cute, but I promise you're going to get deep meat out of this because Denise packs it in. Let me tell you. In fact, I'm just like, woo, I'm back in seminary again.
There you go.
Because I went seminary and it's like, I'm reading her stuff and I'm thinking, oh, it feels like, so if you love that deep stuff, if you want to learn more, we will have that in there. But if you also are like, oh, that might be a little much for me, I might get overwhelmed, but I need something really practical that I can do today to kind of be a lifeline, that's where I'm going to throw that in as well.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll have links for that and as well as your Instagram in the show notes so people can find you.
Yeah, they can just go to yourmentalhealthcoach.com.
Okay.
Because that's really what I want to help people with is it. And the public, like when I'm in my office, I work sometimes with mental illness, but when I'm in the coaching office, when I'm speaking, when I'm doing national consults, when I'm doing these types of things, I want to help you stay as mentally healthy as you can and protect your mental health. Yeah. And I think in order to do that, you have to, you've got to be spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy. Those come in. That doesn't mean you can't like have a diagnosis of some, I've had a hip replacement. I have horrible osteoarthritis. You can have chronic pain and you can still be physically healthy. You can be as physically healthy as you can be. Yeah. That's why I drank, even though I work with Daniel Amen. The Amen clinics are in Dallas. I think they're up in your area too.
Yeah.
And
Newport.
so, I drank my green smoothie today because I work with the nutritionist and I just have a hard time getting the fruits and vegetables in. Mm-hmm. So I threw them all in with some protein today and some coconut water because I'm struggling with dehydration because of all the medication they put in me. And I found one I love. So it helps for sure to find something that you like.
Oh, we might have to have you share the recipe here.
You know what? I'll tell you the secret. Okay. Cherries and pineapple. Frozen cherries and frozen pineapple. Okay. I think it's my Southern cowgirl coming out. I love me some pineapple for sure. And so they don't grow in Texas very well. Yeah. And and the cherries are really good. They have hydraulic acid in them. Mm-hmm. So because I'm struggling with like joints and I need to have things greased and I need that anti-inflammatory, I use that specifically. And it tastes really sweet. And one other big secret, just vanilla extract. A lot of people don't think about that, but that's like making it more like, I kind of joke, it's like my vanilla shake.
More like a milkshake than a healthy smoothie. Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit more, even though it's green, it's very green. I even throw a little MCT oil in it to get further to, help with the grease. But and not everybody's got to have a smoothie. Some people, like my mother, doesn't need that. She eats salad. Mm-hmm. And I've got jars of salad in my fridge, but there's no guarantee I'm going to pop one out this week.
Okay. Well, I did frozen mango and spinach in mine this morning.
There you go.
Yeah, we're doing it. Okay. So the final question is, Michelle, what are you doing for soul care?
I think what you're going to hear from a lot of people are like spending time in God's word, journaling and things like that. And that has been a big part of my life in the past. But I was really thinking about what is caring for my soul more than anything right now. And you talked about sometimes we're exposed to God's word through other people. Yeah. Well, my sister, Melissa Spolstra, is a Lifeway Bible study teacher. Oh, okay. And so she is the digging deeper. So I'm surrounded by these people. I can't get away from them. So, but she and I talk, and she has a very similar lifestyle to me, podcast. She doesn't like podcasts, so she didn't really do that very often. She doesn't when the publisher makes her. I'd be on a podcast every day, but like writing deadlines, and those are things I avoid like the plague if I can get away with it. Like our publisher just asked us to write an article for their conference magazine, and my co-author took the majority of it, and I wrote just a little bit at the bottom. Yeah, because that's the way I like to roll. And so, but talking with her every day, and she and I have a similar skill set. And that is that we approach each other without judgment. We know we are for each other. And that is like I think that's such a reflection of God in somebody's life, is because he's for us. Scripture is very clear. He that is in us is greater than he that's in the world. He is for us. He has redeemed us. He's called us by name. We're chosen. All these different things we talked about in the girls' book, Loved and Cherished, which is a devotional for tween girls. But Melissa helps me remember those hard things. And when I talk to her, she's good at empathizing with me. And she's also good at reminding me of God's truth. And that encourages me. And so the other thing we do is we kind of, in a way, it's like a little accountability powwow, because we both ask, what do you have going today? What are you trying to get done? And if you even just say that out loud to another person, you're more likely to do it than if you just think it in your head. You know, you're more likely to do it if you write it down. You're more likely to do it if you tell somebody else you're going to do it. And so we kind of have that going for us. But also sometimes I get stuck. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but like I was writing and I think I had like 60 words too many, and I knew where the section where that was. And sometimes another set of eyes on our lives or on our writing or whatever it is just super helpful. And the other thing that's really great is that, just like, you know, the Father said to Jesus, "This is my son who I am well pleased." Like, she's really good about not only saying, I'd cut this, this, and this. You're saying the same thing over and over again, like you kind of do, because sometimes I have trouble landing the plane. We kind of laugh, you know. So, but she said, because I got a lot of time to do that every week in the office. It's a little different than, you know, I had 500 words on this one to land the plane. I actually had half, because half was the problem and half was the solution. So very low plan landing. But she also said, this is great. This is going to make a difference in people's lives. And that's the other thing. I think a lot of us, some of you who are listening today, may feel like there's nobody really who's cheering you on. And I think you got to find people who would cheer you on. So I think making time to talk to Melissa in the morning is a part of my soul care practice, because she reminds me of who God is in me. She's known me my whole life. So there's no pulling the wool over her eyes, and she cheers me on.
That's great.
I'll have to make her listen to this now.
Okay. Yeah. She got a bit, she'll get her,
she'll cheer her on in that
there.
sense.
Yeah. I just had a client say to me, she had just moved to the area and we were meeting pretty frequently. And she said, then she went for like a month without making an appointment. So I called to check in with her. She said, you know what? When I first moved here, I really needed you. I needed you to hold me accountable and to help me work through some things. But I got involved in my church and I started making friends, and I don't need you as much anymore. And she felt
she's got other people.
Yeah, she felt a little bit bad telling me that. And then I said, no, this is perfect. This is exactly how your life is supposed to go. Like, you have counselors for when you need counselors, but then the rest of it is just your natural life, and the body of Christ is there to support you.
That's right. Because we're the vessels, right? And then God can use other vessels. And when you get some other vessels going, you may not need our vessel. And that's great. I don't ever take that personally.
Right.
I know there's other vessels looking for me, so I'm not worried about that either.
No, I'm saying mission accomplished, right?
Yes. But, and I think that's so great. And then it's great sometimes to say, hey, you know me better than a lot of people do. And I want to come in and talk to you about this, because it's a safe place. I'm not going to blab to anybody else. And I'm also, I don't have a vested interest in our agenda in your life. And that's helpful sometimes. So yeah, I'm very grateful for soul care for sure. And I'm grateful for you. Thanks for having me on the show today.
This was fun. Yeah. Really, there's so many similarities. I feel like we could probably just talk all day. So thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed listening to that interview with Michelle Nietert, and that you will go over and check out some of her links and some of the resources that she's providing. I also want to remind you, if you're listening to this episode on the day that it releases, which is February 22nd, you are just in time for the book giveaway with Drew Froese. We'll be over on Instagram Live today. You can watch our video or try to catch us live there, and you might be the winner of Drew's book. He's going to send out a signed copy. So thank you for that, Drew. And I hope you guys can really find that to be a useful resource and really meaningful in your life as you follow Jesus. So make sure you catch us over on Instagram later today. And one final reminder, on February 28th, I'm going to be offering the masterclass about confidently integrating your faith into your counseling practice. So if you're a therapist, or you know a therapist who is personally a Christian but doesn't necessarily practice counseling from that perspective, this class is for you. We're going to be going over how your calling and identity all wrap up together with your clinical skill to be able to produce really deep results for your clients. So go over to soulgritresources.com and get signed up for that. The Soul Grit podcast is a production of Soul Grit Resources. You can find more at soulgritresources.com or on the socials at Soul Grit Resources. You can email me at info@soulgritresources.com.